to my sisters and brothers in the room. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. How many Palestinians are in the room? So you will understand when I say they didn't just let like a Muslim, a Palestinian in there, they let a falaha in Congress. So just remember that when you see stuff in the news, you're like, remember I'm a falaha first. Inshallah, you're having a wonderful Ramadan with your family, community, and you're connecting with Allah in such a strong, powerful way. I do want to share, Reem just remind me it's Malcolm X's birthday. I remember reading a speech of Malcolm X's, and his speeches are phenomenal. There's essays and things that you can look into. And one of the speeches was talking about coffee, like, you know, the anti-blackness in the country, and how even coffee, they can't be black. They have to put cream in it. So ever since then, I will only drink my coffee black, and every time somebody puts cream in theirs, I give them a look. So that's my Malcolm X story. But as we all celebrate Ramadan this year during a heightened time of Islamophobia and the growing violent forms of hate, I need you all to remember Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. His actions were always centered in justice and fighting against poverty, but also speaking up when no one else would. He talked about integration when it wasn't popular to. By making sure that we were uplifting those that had darker skin, we would say, and really, really trying to talk about equality again when no one else was talking about it. My passion very much was born in growing up in Southwest Detroit, which is 20 different beautiful ethnicities. I didn't speak English when I started school. My mother only had 8th grade education, my father 4th grade education. And so I'm very, very much, though, still very rooted in my beloved, beautiful Palestine, which is yet to be free from oppression and inequality. And this year, our children witnessed history watching a fierce Somalian American woman, who every time I check on my sister Alhan, I was like, are you okay? She's like, Rashida, I survived war, I can survive this. Both of us Muslims were sworn in as United States Congress members. I proudly wore my mother's Palestinian thobe while carrying my family's strength and the hope of my residents who believed in me. Our elections were so filled with hope, still very much, and brought so much light during a time of darkness in our country. The story has yet to be told that I was born and raised in the most beautiful, blackest city in the nation, the city of Detroit. Of course, you all should know, my legislative director, Dominique Warren, who's not here, is from Toledo. He reminds us all that he's from Toledo. Every time I say something Detroit, he goes, remember, I grew up in Toledo. I still said we're the most beautiful, blackest city in the country, in that city of Detroit. Detroit versus everybody, people. Where every corner in the city of Detroit is a reminder of the struggle, of the civil rights movement, of the fight against corporate greed with the birthplace of the labor movement. My lens is shaped by my African-American teachers and my neighbors who taught me the truth about our country, the oppression and segregation and the killings, all of which have been embedded in the structures all around us at all different levels of government, and that's why I fight so hard and fight so much unapologetically myself. Now, sisters and brothers, I always say this, mix that up with a little bit of Palestinian blood and history, and that's the part of my being. And you got yourself an unbossed warrior against injustice in Congress.
All right.
The other part of the American story that has yet to be told about Ilhan Omar and myself is we were elected by fellow Americans who did not share our faith. 60% black, close to 40% white community helped make history in giving us all one of the first Muslims in Congress. Even my sister Ilhan Omar, her district was 70% white community. Again, fellow Americans who didn't share our faith or ethnicity elected us. So many want to believe that I represent Dearborn. I do not. And so many want to believe that only Somalis elected Ilhan Omar, and that is not true. And I want you to share that with your children, and share that with young people, all of you, to know that, to believe in that. Action is necessary today, but we also need hope first. There's a beautiful story, and I love reading for those, for a lot of us during Ramadan, we like to read the Quran, fully. It's almost like poetry, you have to dig into the stories. But also, there's also times for me during Ramadan that I like to read other kinds of stories, from different parts of the world. But there is a famous story that speaks about a young king who passed by an old man planting an olive tree. And some of my Muslim brothers and sisters will know this. Which, of course, you know, when you plant that tree, it takes decades to produce good fruit. So this young king asked, as he saw this elderly man planting this olive tree, he said, do you believe this tree will be of any benefit to you, old man? You will die before it bears fruit. And the old man replied, those before me planted and we benefited. We should plant so that others after us might benefit. And the king was impressed with the old man's concern for the future generations. And then he rewarded the old man with money. The old man said to the king, see, the tree has already brought me benefit. The king smiled and rewarded him again. And there's a saying, sisters and brothers, that before us they planted, and now we eat what they have planted, and we too must plant so that those after us, likewise, I don't know why I always say it wrong. Those after us will likewise eat. So, in many ways, Alhan, Omar, and myself are like seeds. We've just planted, right? In many ways. And our Muslim community is so generous and kind when it comes to our community service. We also are taught at the same time to be humble. Even my staff constantly say, you don't tell people enough about what you do. I said, well, that's what I want to do. That's just who I am. I don't want to share, when I help people getting their Social Security benefits, or when this young woman came in and she was crying about her DTE being shut off, and I saw her shaking, and I knew it wasn't just about getting her light and gas back on, and I said to her, what else is going on that I can help you? Because I can tell it's so much more. And she said, this is the weekend for my daughter's homecoming, and I feel like I'm ruining it for my daughter. And I feel like now I have to spend the money that I was going to spend on her dress and everything. She said, I was saving up, that's why. I couldn't pay because I was saving up so she can get her dress and get her hair and so forth done. And she just thought she was just ruining this young girl's life, even though we know homecoming will, whatever. But for her, as a mother, she did not want to not allow her daughter to experience that. And so I called, mashallah, I'm the eldest of 14, for all of you that don't know. Mashallah, say mashallah. And being the eldest of 14, I've been taking care of people all my life. But I also have, 6 sisters. So I called all of them and said, who's this, and only 2 of them are size 6. And we were able to give this young girl a dress for homecoming. We never got the dress back, by the way. But she sent me pictures, and it just brought so much joy to my family. But again, we are very generous and very kind as a Muslim community, but we don't share as much. But I want our faith to lead us to go farther in fighting against structural racism, against our black and brown brothers and sisters. We sometimes wait to speak up. We have to acknowledge that sometimes. We react when it's about us. We think that someone else can take care of it. Not anymore. Our silence is not who we are as Muslims. We need to demand that children in cages are released, that local police stop killing our black neighbors, yes, that we speak up against sexual harassment and assault of women in the workplace. Yes. Then we expose who we are as Muslims. I remember a sister in the Flint Masjid raised her hand, very young girl, Harding High School, and she raised her hand and she said, Rashida, why haven't anybody spoke up about what's happening, what they're saying about us? And I said, sister, what did you say when President Trump called, or I like to call individual one, sometimes I don't like bringing him into the space, so we'll call him individual one. So individual one, says that Mexicans are rapists. I said, what did we say? And the whole masjid, the whole mosque was just quiet. And I said, that's the problem. Sometimes we wait to speak up. And that's something that I think growing up in Detroit has taught me to always speak up. And it was my black mothers on the block that taught my mother, don't let them yell at you because you have an accent. Speak up. Always have her back. Yes. Grace Lee Boggs, who's an activist in Detroit, and again for my sisters in the room, look her up. She said years ago, before her transition, she said, quote, civil and voting rights for blacks didn't come from the White House or from masses demonstrating in front of the White House. They came after the Montgomery boycott of 55 and 56, the Freedom Rides in 61, the Children's Crusade in Birmingham in 63, the Mississippi Freedom Summer and Freedom Schools of 64, and the Selma to Montgomery March in 65. They came only after hundreds of thousands of Black Americans and their white supporters had accepted the challenge and risks of ourselves making or becoming the change we want to see in the world. Women's leadership in the public sphere didn't come from the White House or from CEOs. It came after millions of women came together in small consciousness. Americans in all walks of life have begun to create another America from the ground up in many unforeseen ways. In our bones, we sense that this is no ordinary time. It is a time of deep change, not just for social structure changes in the economy, but also of ourselves. So I ask all of you during this Ramadan, find ways to speak up, to rise up. I want to see Muslimeens at the forefront of women's marches, fight against police brutality, inequality, against the inhumane immigration system that hurts all of us, and of course, the Muslim ban. Of course, you all know I will always carry you, every single fellow American that believes, truly believes in freeing people from not only economic oppression, but also racial oppression. But I also ask you to carry me. I will not always be the perfect, person. I'm not your politician. I am a public servant and community organizer, but I'm also a mother first that is raising 2 Muslim boys in this country where they feel less and less like they belong. Only together will we achieve. I try not to bring up my voice, but it does bring emotion. But truly together will we achieve what we all deem impossible. So many people deemed impossible for a Palestinian, a Muslim, to get elected in a predominantly Black city, but we did it, and that to me should give you all a sense of hope. So celebrate this moment and let's get to work and show our nation the true Islam that we all truly love. I will leave you with some funny stories because Reem inspired me with her jokes. Mashallah, Reem, seriously, mashallah, your timing is good. My timing is so bad, so I'm going to try. So for us, especially our Muslim sisters, you know what I'm talking about. So I am the activist. I'm the one who was marching. I wouldn't tell my mom where I was taking the bullhorn, But, because your mother wants you to do all these great things, but at the same time, she's like, why do you have to do it, So I remember in 2016, less than a mile of where I lived, the candidate, Donald J. Trump, came to Cobo Center in downtown Detroit. He came to speak to Detroit Economic Club, and it was the first time in history Detroit Economic Club would not allow questions. Of course, one of the members was very upset. So they reached out, and 12 women, including myself, got into the Detroit Economic Club legally. I didn't trust that. No, we did. I had my ticket and everything. And we got there, and every 2 minutes, a sister would just get up. One asked about labor rights. One asked about, sexual harassment and women in the workplace. So many kept asking these incredible questions. I was number 7. And I got up and I said, have you ever read the Constitution? I was screaming. It was the only time that he ever actually stopped his speech. That's how loud I was. I was very proud of that. Because he was reading the prompter and I said, have you ever read the Constitution? You should read the Constitution. If you ever see the video, you'll see me kind of maneuvering, and the Secret Service are trying to grab me. Because they figured something's up, because every 2 minutes, another girl. So they were watching the crowd. They eyed me before I got up. They realized that's that state representative that blocks trucks and goes after the Koch brothers. She's probably one of them. So as I got up and I'm screaming, and of course I'm dragged out, I get a text from my brother who was at, I think, a bank. And he says, literally, I'm at the bank, and I look up, and they're seeing it, and I see my sister being dragged out. And then, of course, I get a call from my sister Layla, where he's like, oh my God, Yumma is so mad at you. And I was like, oh my God, I thought she was there. She goes, no, whatever, because she doesn't watch CNN. She doesn't watch all of that shows, thank God. But so one of her friends called. She goes, Wali, حبسوها Rashida. Like she got arrested. Rashida got arrested. She's in jail. So she's calling all the brothers. So she calls me, and of course I pick up. I'm like, Emma, yeah, mom. Shoo, لازم انت تسوي لي مشاكل. You're the one who wants to always cause me trouble. She goes, what? You're in jail? I said, Mama, if I'm in jail, how am I answering the cell phone? I said, Mama, listen. She goes, no, Mama. لازم هيك تسوي لي يعني قدام الناس كلهم طول الناس. And I was like, Mama, in front of all these people, you did that to us. And I said, Mama, this is the most American thing I could have ever done. I said, Mama, he wants to be president. Do you know what this is? She goes, no. Who's gonna vote for him? She was so, yes, that's my mother. She always, but it's contagious how much love and hope she has. And so I remember she goes to pray Jummah prayer, and she goes. Of course, she gets into the masjid according to her friends, and her friend who told me. She walks in, and they go, MashaAllah, binte, your daughter is so strong, MashaAllah, makwaha, good for her. So she calls me Saturday. She goes, oh, I said, Shoo, Yama, you're still mad at me? She says, no, I'm proud of you. I said, so it took your sisters up in the masjid at the mosque on Friday Jummah prayer to be like, your daughter's cool, for you to be like, okay. The best incredible part was my brother Nader, who, he doesn't call me or anything. He calls me, he's like, sis, man, bro. That's how he talks. Oh my God, bro. First of all, I'm not a bro when you're sis, but whatever. So he's like, you, man, I'm so proud of you. And I was like, Nader, I've done civil disobedience work. It's nothing. You know how raw I am. You know I'm not out there and I speak truth to power. It's not a big deal. He goes, no, sis, I watched. Every single other girl, every single other woman had 2 Secret Service. You needed 6. As I sit there in Congress, all imperfect as I am, there's something that is incredible about, even my seniors who, even after calling the president what I called him, calls me and says to me, no, really, she called me, she goes, dear, I don't use that language. I would never use that language. I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, but I want you to know something. I said, what's that? She was, when you said it, I felt more liberated. And so, with that, thank you so much. Thank you for being here.